What's going on? This is your man John Fortune, your host of the Frustrated Fan Sports Show, and today I do a special show. No Commanders game, nothing going on, and a special show where I go down in the comments. So I'm going to go down in the comments of my recent video where I talked about my reasoning for not seeing Sam Howell as a franchise quarterback. So no further delay, I'm going to start getting into these comments because some of y'all, man, I tell you, this Sam Howell topic is something else. So, starting from the bottom, hi there, 470. I think you should give him another year. Most quarterbacks do not reach their potential in the first year. He is dealing with a horrendous O-line and a first-year coordinator. This team is also poorly coached. That is true. Now, I will say this as well. Along with giving, now I didn't say Sam Howell don't deserve another year. I'm saying that with this upcoming season, you need to get another quarterback in here because you don't know what Sam Howell is. And you have to understand this as well. He will have another year under his belt, right? But the NFL as a whole will have a year full of Sam Howell information. And understand this, you're talking about historically, most players usually fail in their second year or they struggle in their second year starting because everybody got so much film on them in the first full season. So now you're in a situation where, you hope Sam Howell is better in year two, but what happens if he isn't? And he goes and he's reverted back, and now the NFL has caught up to him and knows his nuances and know what to do to sit up there and basically make him worse than he is in his first year. So again, you have to think about that. Next is 1177 Gerard. I think that's how you say it, or Gerard. I think it's Gerard. I think that's the way you spell Gerard. I guess it's it. Dude, it's his first year. You tripping? Not even a full season. He's still learning the quarterback position. And then Michael Franklin said, "Amen." Again, it's his first full season of starting, but it's not his first season. It's his second season. He actually had a season of sitting on the bench. Now, it was a different offense. I can give him something for that. It's a different offense, but also realize this. So many people have been complaining about EB's play calling and EB's offense, yet and still, if EB is not here, you're talking about now he's going to be learning a new offense. So now you're going to talk about a guy who's been in the league 3 years, having to learn 3 different offenses, and also understand in 4 years, he would have played in 4 different offenses, going back to his year in Chapel Hill. So again, that may be a bigger problem than you think. Next is Protect 428. I don't know if it's my man Protect Sports, but I'll figure it out. And what he says, I get what you're saying, but also he's kept us competitive and given us moments of clutch play. Philadelphia week 4, Seattle week 10, week 2 versus Denver, week 1 versus Arizona. When we needed a drive by Sam, he got it done. But along with you saying that, there's also both Giants games. There's also the Buffalo game. There's also almost came close to losing the Arizona game. And there's also look at the Philadelphia, the second Philadelphia game. even though Sam Howell has made some very good comebacks in some games and stuff like that, there also have been moments where he has failed at the end of the games. Like I said, I told you, he had two straight games in a row where he threw a pick six. The Giants game, he threw a pick six, and then in the most recent game, he threw a pick six. So you're talking about, like, I don't know how much, and Dallas, he threw a pick six, but I don't know how much you want him to, I mean, I understand that he's made some clutch plays, but guess what? Every game you said, other than Denver and Arizona, he lost those games. So, again, I get where you're coming from, but at the same time, you got to take the good. If you're going to take the good, you got to take the bad as well. And you have to basically focus on that to understand where I'm coming from in regards that, look, we can't call him a franchise quarterback yet. And eventually, let's see if he becomes that. But at the same time, I don't see it right now. Next is Certified Yam Inspector. Now, this is one of my guys, one of my original guys, one of the first ones to comment on the video. This was a good video, and I would agree 100% if the team was 8-3 or 9-2 and ready to be actual contenders. Here's where things get a little foggy. Sam definitely doesn't have the Hogs or Hall of Fame coaching. Plus, he's stuck with the worst defense. He's stuck with the worst defense this team has had in years. Also, Jay Schroeder was the predecessor to guys like Jeff George and Jay Cutler, egotistical jackasses who teammates dislike them despite their clear and obvious talent. Sam isn't that. He also isn't a franchise quarterback either, at least not yet. The thing is, it's not about what he is right now, it's what he can be in the future. I agree with everything else, because there's definitely some nice talent coming out soon. If Sam is still making the same mistakes in 2 years, then we can look to upgrade. Even then, an upgrade doesn't guarantee greater success. San Diego upgraded from Breeze to Rivers, and it didn't do much at all. Not only are fans tired of the quarterback carousel, we're tired of watching guys leave DC and be great on other teams. Again, good video, bruh. You know what? I can understand the reasoning with that too, and I appreciate everything you said, because you're right on. You know, Jay Cutler, Jeff George, Jay Schroeder had that issue with him. His ego was way too big. If most of y'all have ever seen the movie The Replacements, most people think that quarterback character is Joe Theismann, when in fact it's actually Jay Schroeder. That's who they're emulating in that movie. But in regards to this, like, this is the only thing I disagree with you on this, is the fact that we have to understand that in 2 years, Sam is a free agent. Not only that, there's no guarantee that the guys that'll be coming out in 2 years are going to be as good as the guys coming out this year. Especially if we have a pick that's within the top 10, and not only that, if it's within the top 5. So even with that, even with what you're saying being right, if you have guys in this upcoming draft, you're talking about if Sam is even close to good or close to great, or if Sam even fails, at least you have a guy ready to be able to come in and keep your team moving. Not only that, you got to understand this. Analytics is going to play a huge role in this upcoming season, because they've already shown that when it comes to analytics, they're looking at it contractual wise as well. And to be quite honest, again, analytically, it's gonna be important that they draft a quarterback this year. Let Sam operate out, keep on operating, and then your guy that's behind Sam may more than likely be ready to take over for Sam if Sam should leave, or if he plays hardball in free agency. Because again, how many of y'all are, at this point right now, how many of y'all are really willing to pay Sam Howell 40 something, maybe even by the time he becomes a free agent, 50 something million a year? Got to think about that. Next is my man Protect. So this is Protect. This is my man Protect. Protect. He's 23 years old. He can improve his game. That's true. It's no doubt about that he can improve his game. The problem is that, again, you're talking about when Ron got here, he talked about competition on all levels. And for some reason, Sam has no competition here. So maybe if you really want the best Sam Howell, see what he does with competition. Not only competition, somebody who could possibly beat him out. You know, somebody who's going to push him to the edge to be better than he is right now. Because right now, what you see is a guy that if you had a young quarterback, you might think about sitting him. But because you don't, he's lucky. And like I said, come next year, you're going to have to see if it's even worth him being on, if it's even worth him being on your bench. So again, like I said, I understand he's 23 and that he can improve, but give him a level of competition that he has to face. Next is my man Joshua Anderson, 9361. This is a very bad take. Okay. First year as a starter, he's in a new system. The problem with the team is that every year there's a new coach or quarterback or new offensive coordinator. Well, guess what? There's also going to be a new coach, maybe a new offensive coordinator. Because again, you think that even with Eric Bieniemy being here as offensive coordinator, if he doesn't get the head coaching job, do you think he's going to be okay with staying here as offensive coordinator, especially when you're talking about the possibility of being overstepped in the organization he was already in? I mean, yeah, again, I said this earlier. This will be Sam Howell's fourth offense that he'll have to learn now. So once it comes about, if Eric Bieniemy is here, he's going to have to be the head coach. He cannot be the offensive coordinator. And again, he's not going to feel excited about staying on and being looked at and being overstepped, because now there is nobody that's going to take this job for 1 year. It's just not going to happen. So again, you're talking about new offense, new coordinator, all that type of stuff. He might have to deal with that next year. So at the end of the day, we'll see what happens. Again, here's my man Protect again. Taylor is in and out of the league, but I knew he was never going to be the guy. I didn't like the idea that Dwayne Haskins never had a true chance to be the guy here. Ron ruined that, shaking my head. You draft Penix Jr., he needs to play. I'm giving Sam 2024 to see if he can build the roster around him. And if he fails, then in 2025, I'm gladly taking a quarterback. I feel your points and agree with some of these points. I will give Sam time. All quarterbacks don't develop the same way. Dwayne Haskins did not get a fair shake by Ron Rivera at all. Dwayne Haskins came, and understand, we're talking about egotistical Ron. First year, egotistical Ron. He benched him after 4 games. Everybody, it wasn't just me, it wasn't just, almost the entire fan base was like, how are you going to evaluate a guy in only 4 games? And Ron didn't care. Now all of a sudden, it's like, now he's the lame duck coach. And now he wants to prove that he's able to develop a young quarterback. But guess what? He has no say in the development of this guy. None. Ron isn't the guy. Ron isn't the one assisting with the development of Sam Howell. He's letting somebody else develop him, because he had hired people prior to that who never developed quarterbacks. So again, now it's one of those situations where, yeah, it's okay to sit up there and develop Sam Howell. But guess what? Again, just like I said earlier to another commenter, if you wait then guess what? How do you know that the guys coming out next year are going to be as good as the guys coming out this year? I mean, from all indications, Shador might stay in school, but why take that risk? If you're sitting there at the 5th pick and Michael Penix is on the board, hell, if you're sitting there maybe around the 7th pick and Jaden Daniels is there, you might have to take that risk. Because again, and it's not even a risk. You might have to take one of these guys because those type of guys are guys that can change a franchise. Those type of guys are guys that can do something really, really good in this league. And like I said, for y'all who didn't watch the Washington game, for y'all who didn't watch the LSU game, go back and watch those games. Those dudes are for real. For real. So, but again, like I said, I'm not saying dump Sam Howell. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying let Sam Howell know, hey, we got this young boy that's right here, and understand this. You better play better or he's going to be taking your job. Or guess what? Outperform him. If he outperforms you, you're done. If you outperform him, then guess what? We might have to make a decision when free agency come about with you. That's all I'm saying. Next is Mr. DCB 215. First, you're not using reasoning with your comparison. You should Google the fallacy of faulty comparison. Well, okay. Tell me what's wrong with my comparison. Tell me what's wrong with my comparison. Other than the fact that Jay Schrader was a guy whose ego got in the way a lot. In regards to numbers and the way they play the exact same way. Body type is almost identical. Same thing applied. They both hold on to the ball when certain things aren't there. They sit up there and they took a lot of sacks. There are lots of comparisons that is getting around it. Like, even when you think about Kirk Cousins didn't take the level of sacks that he did because Kirk got rid of the ball. And that was one of the things but Kirk wasn't a winner. He wasn't a winner in college for real. But Kirk wasn't going to get you over that hump. And this is what I'm talking about when, and you're talking about faulty comparison. Tell me what the faulty comparison of that is. Because in reality, that's a spot on comparison when you're paying attention to Sam Howell year 2. And guess what? Jay Schrader year 2. Live, laugh, love 321. It's too early to have a definitive opinion either way. And I agree with that. Like I said, I'm not sitting here saying it's definitive what he's going to be. What I'm saying is that currently right now, I don't see it. Not only that, we have a draft coming up that has some stellar talent at quarterback. Stellar. We ain't talking about some fluky guys. We ain't talking about some possibilities. No, we're talking about some really good players. You know, and again, sometimes you have to sit up there and say, guess what? Let me take the best player at a position, even if it's not a position of need. Taking a guy who might be something special is way more important than taking a guy just because you need something. So, again, like I said, if it was any other draft, hell, if it was Sam Howell's draft, I would understand taking the offensive lineman. But guess what? We're talking about a draft where these quarterbacks are insane. Absolutely insane. And I know a lot of y'all don't look at college football, but I'm telling you, these dudes, these are a different breed of quarterback that's coming out in this upcoming draft. From Mr. DCB 215, you stated you stated you don't want a quarterback who is not considered a Patrick Mahomes. In other words, if people consistently say a quarterback isn't Mahomes, you don't want him. However, Mahomes is in the top 1% of quarterbacks. Everybody wants that. The fact is those guys aren't easy to find. Using logic of not wanting a quarterback that's not in the top 1%, you should, if you're consistent, have taken the position that all three quarterbacks that have won a Super Bowl with this organization weren't the guy. However, despite not being within the top 1%, they won. Look at our division's recent history. Eli Manning isn't a top 1% quarterback. Neither is Nick Foles. Both won Super Bowls. The question really is, should the Commanders use the draft capital, free agent money, and or trade positioning to look for the guy, or should they use the draft capital, free agent money, and or trade positioning to build around Sam? The question really is an easy answer for me. Okay, so it's not about finding Patrick Mahomes. It's about finding a guy who can be like a Patrick Mahomes. What I mean by that is Joe Burrow is like a Patrick Mahomes, is he not? You think about Lamar Jackson. He's like a Patrick Mahomes, right? And the reason I'm giving these examples is because they're not Patrick Mahomes, but when a game is on the line, you know you can go to that quarterback. Josh Allen is not a Patrick Mahomes, but he can make a game happen like a Patrick Mahomes. Jalen Hurts is not a Patrick Mahomes, but when Philadelphia needs the game, they will sit up there and depend on Jalen Hurts to do that. And to be honest, yes, there are a lot of Super Bowl winners who are not in that 1%. You know what Eli Manning had? He did have a really good defense around him. But Eli wasn't a turnover machine like that either. He did throw picks, and he also didn't take a lot of sacks as well. Eli Manning played, and he played well enough to make sure that no matter what, he was getting his team far. Sam, on the other hand, he has the turnover issue. And if y'all don't see that as an issue, then again, like I said, yeah, it's year one. I understand. But again, there's still the chance that he may not be as good as you want him to be. But it's okay. It's okay. Because hopefully he becomes something special. And if he doesn't, guess what? If we draft a quarterback from this draft, there's a chance you don't have to be concerned with that, because you will have the guy ready to take over for him. Not only that, your new coach may not want Sam Howell. He may sit up there and say, hey, look, check this. I'm going to take one of these young guys in this quarterback, and he will be groomed in my offense, and I won't have to be concerned with that. We'll play Sam Howell, but guess what? If Sam Howell falters, I'm going to the young guy. Next is my man YT. You know what? I always think this is a guy. I could be wrong because it's just YT Rennie. So I don't even know if it's a guy or a girl. So I'm apologize for that. I'm not certain if you're a guy. I'm not certain if you're a girl. I assumed you was a guy, but either way, still a great supporter. We also got to talk about Terry. He ain't been the same. I want to blame EB scheme, but also I'm tired of this body catching. So Terry's having a down year. One is the transition into the offense. That's number one. Number two is also Sam doesn't look for him like other quarterbacks that have been here have. Dwayne Haskins made it a point of saying to the staff, bring me one of my receivers. I'm a staunch believer in that. When you draft a young quarterback, you bring him a weapon that he's accustomed to. Prime example, if you draft Michael Penix Jr., Romeo Ozime, that's the number one, the wide receiver, you should draft him. If you can't get him, you get, I think his name is Thomas Jr., you get him, you get one of them, you give him something familiar that he's used to, because that helps his growth as a quarterback. Now, we got De'Ami Brown here with Sam Howell. The problem is that we're talking about a season. Everybody's talking about what happened with the defensive backs and Chris Harris not being here anymore. But nobody's talking about Drew Terrell not being here anymore and how the production in the wide receiver room has fallen off. Because that was a key loss as well. I was telling everybody about Drew Terrell and how good Drew Terrell is. He's now in Arizona. So now you're talking about, again, yeah, guess what? The defensive backs are struggling because Chris Harris is gone. And look at what's happening with the wide receivers. They're struggling because Drew Terrell is gone. So this tells me that, yeah, coaching is a valuable thing. And the reason Terry's numbers are gone down is because, one, his coach is gone, and two, because Sam Howell is not looking for him on every play. Next is Joe Hewitt, 18 and 189. You write about every point. I appreciate the support. I really appreciate the support because, hey, this is a hot button topic, man. This Sam Howell one, it's a hot button topic. Next is Mr. Hunted Spokes. Just because you're seeing doesn't mean you're right about anything. I'm not trying to be somebody who's right about anything and everything, but I will say this. When Ron first got here, this is one of these things that it's like so hilarious how things happen. When Ron got here, I was the first one to sit up here and say, hey, look, y'all, I don't think Ron is a good coach. I mean, his messaging is inconsistent. The man came here in the press conference, said he took the job because of the roster, and immediately flipped the roster. He took over. He had the 6th best offensive line in the NFL and immediately alienated them. You're talking about, when I was talking about that, there was the whole Ron's plan and I believe in Ron and all that messaging was going on, right? Now everybody's on board with Ron being a terrible coach. And I've said that. When I was sitting here blasting Scott Turner for being a terrible play caller, for sitting up there and not understanding situational awareness, things like that. People were up there talking about, well, he draws up great plays and the routes are good and all this type of stuff. Guess what? Wasn't that good. And when people started to recognize it, next thing you know, it was like, okay, here we are now with Sam Howell. All these people, NHO, I believe in Sam. Sam is the man. All this type of stuff, right? And I'm saying, hey, look, check this. He's not there yet. He's not a franchise guy. Everybody keeps screaming he's a franchise guy. Here's an example. Another YouTuber, Lloyd Brunson. I think his name is Lord Brunson, I think it is. He does the Philadelphia stuff. He's a very good YouTuber. He sat up there and he made a hat. And the hat was Hurt Season, right? He made that hat after Sam Hurts' first full season of playing. So when he saw Hurts' first full season of playing, he waited and the second season and then made a hat that says it's Hurts season. That was a smart thing to do, because you don't sit up there and say you believe in a guy if you don't know what he's going to be and you're only seeing him for the first year. So again, sometimes it's not about the fact of what the message is. Sometimes the person that's giving you the message may not be the best choice, because at the end of the day, if they're not even giving him the opportunity to learn and grow, then why should I? Because again, they're already stamping their support for him being a franchise guy. And if he was to fail, how many of them would sit up there and say, you know what, my bad, I was completely wrong? But guess what? Every time I turn around, I come back and I'm like, look, y'all, I was trying to explain this to y'all. Imagine if Sam Howell imagine we don't take a quarterback this year, right? Sam Howell falters in year 2. Now we're a year behind the quarterback. Now we're a year behind in the quarterback situation. maybe even 2 years behind in the quarterback situation, because guess what? Now you still have to still evaluate Sam Howell, and you got to hope and pray that you don't win enough games to end up falling down in the draft again and picking around 16 or 14, and the top guys are always at 1 through 5. Got to think about that. Next is Kenny Davis. He has a laughing emoji, and Haskins didn't have a chance, with the smiling with the sweat. He didn't. Haskins didn't get a chance at all. I mean, Ron, again, this was a super arrogant Ron who came in here. He came in here. He gave Haskins 4 games. 4 games. And that was it. Benched him right after that. Then, not only did he bench him, he went with Alex Smith. I think it was, he went with Kyle Allen. I think it was. Kyle Allen faltered, got injured, faltered. Alex Smith had to come in. Alex Smith had to run his own offense to even win games. Then at the end of coming towards the end of the season, Alex Smith is too hurt to go and play, that Taylor Heineke has to play the playoff game. So guess what? Yes, Haskins ain't get the same amount of chances that Sam Howell is getting right now. Because if you think about it, Sam Howell, based on the performance that Haskins gave in those 4 games, and he got benched in the 4 games, guess what? Sam Howell has had those same 4 games, and I'm pretty sure that if egotistical Ron was thinking about it, Sam Howell should have been benched too. So again, yes, Haskins did not get a fair shake. Next is DeMilo Gar, 7641. I see where you're coming from. I totally agree. So it's not just me that is a person that is seeing what's going on with Sam Howell and seeing the fact that we got an upcoming draft that has some really talented quarterbacks coming in. He's not a franchise guy right now. Y'all see, the thing that bothers me is that y'all call him a franchise quarterback, but then y'all sit up there and say, "Oh man, but he's only in his first real year starting." Well, understand that doesn't make any sense. He can't be the franchise guy and then the excuse is he's only in his first year starting. Like, no, if he's the franchise guy, he needs to perform like the franchise guy by not throwing pick sixes. That's how you do that. By not taking silly sacks. By not putting your body in harm's way. That's another issue. I mean, he runs into tacklers. Understand this. All it's going to take is for a couple players. Because remember when Robert Griffin got hurt? Remember teams were scared to hit him because of the quarterback rules and stuff like that? And then all of a sudden when the rule committee came out and said, no, when he runs out of the pocket, he's now a runner. You can hit him however hard you want to hit him or hit him as much as you want to hit him. That all of a sudden changed every dynamic you could imagine. It's going to happen. Sam Howell doesn't protect himself. He understand the Giants game. He got his bell rung a little bit. Understand, the next time he does that, it's going to be more than him getting his bell rung. He's going to end up injured. So people got to think about that. Next is one of my longtime commenters, somebody I really love, really respect, Merle Locklear, 2141. I continue to say I'm a Sam Howell fan. I get exactly what you're saying. He does hold the ball too long at times, and I'm really starting to see the let me be a hero, and that's where the bad decisions come in at. Yes, he is in the top half of passing yards, but also it needs to be noticed that he has the most passing attempts. I'm not ready to throw in the towel, but as seasons end, if the same mistakes keep coming into effect, then move on. I do agree. If we're able to get a top caliber quarterback in the first round, yes, take that guy, give competition, and may the best man win. Worst that can happen is we have 2 starting caliber quarterbacks on the team. Exactly. Merle, you hit it right on the nose. It's not about Sam Howell being this awful quarterback. It's not about him not eventually being better. The thing is this. If Sam is going to be good, and we have the opportunity to draft another quarterback, and this guy becomes good or great just as well, if both of them become great at the same time, now you got a trade asset. Then you can sit up there and nitpick little small stuff. All right, well, this guy, he throws the ball harder. He makes better decisions. Sam knows the offense better. He plays better in the offense. Then you're nitpicking stuff, and that is a better situation to be in instead of sitting up in here and being like, our guy Sam, and we're not bringing him no competition. Merle, greatly appreciate that comment, man. Man, that's spot on, brother. Spot on. Next is 2119 Rocky. I get what you're saying. Give him a couple seasons, then let's see. He is still a young quarterback. Actually, that is a good comparison, Jay Schrader to Sam Howell. But give a little time, yet then evaluate him. I appreciate you understanding my comparison. You know what I'm saying? Because it wasn't me saying he's this awful quarterback. I'm just saying that currently right now in his current state, you're talking about Jay Schrader year 2 is basically doing the exact same thing Sam Howell year 2 is doing. It's actually identical. Like, it's so identical. And the thing about it is that I'm not saying, I think, and this is where I may have to clear it up again, or clear it up some more. I'm not saying give Sam Howell 1 year. No, give him the time he needs. But understand that with this 1 year, he's going to have to show that next year, he is actually way better, especially when you're talking about the NFL having a full season of film on him. And in a draft where there are top level quarterbacks in this draft. So again, I appreciate you understanding the comparison, because but I'm not saying Sam Howell should only get 1 year. I'm not saying that at all. He still should compete next year, but I would still take a quarterback this year. 2119 Rocky. He has another question for you. If Minnesota doesn't hold on to Josh Dobbs, will you take him over Sam Howell? No. There's a reason why Josh Dobbs has been a backup quarterback for the longest. I personally think it has a lot to do with old thinking in the NFL, the nepotism of the NFL. When you have older people teaching young people certain things, a lot of times what ends up happening, and it's not to say that all older people do this, but the nepotism that has happened in the NFL has made younger coaches not respect the talent level or the development process for quarterbacks, right? Josh Dobbs falls in that category. Every time you turn around, everybody talks about how smart Josh Dobbs is. Every time he plays, he sometimes he plays well, sometimes he doesn't. And I think that what happens is that, so many of these coaches are so poor at development because they're hiring their buddies. They're hiring their friends. They're hiring people they know. A good example is Juan Castillo as the tight ends coach. Knowing Juan Castillo for years has been an offensive line coach. So why would you hire him to basically manage a group that he's never managed before, and his background isn't in that? So again, I would not take Josh Dobbs because he is a backup quarterback. Now, put it like this. If Josh Dobbs came here and there was an offense he was accustomed to, I would bring him in, but it would be as a backup, not as a starter. I would actually have Sam Howell start over top of him. So, I mean, I like Josh Dobbs, but again, he's been a backup for years, but I think that most of the reason he's been a backup is the old coaching and the nepotism that has gone on, because a lot of these coaches, they don't take a guy who's really intelligent and try to develop him to make him more successful. Josh Dobbs for years was on the bench in Pittsburgh for years. And then when he went to Cleveland, he was on the bench there. So, I mean, and in the middle of the season, they made a trade. He went to Arizona, was actually looking good in Arizona. Kyler Murray was set to come back. Arizona traded him to Minnesota. He took over for Kirk Cousins, and I think he won a game and lost a game. I can't remember if they won the game this past game, but again, me personally, I like Josh Dobbs, but I like him as a backup. Next is Chili 69 Palmer. I'm holding out any judgment until the offensive line is overhauled. I'm gonna tell you like this: that won't happen for some years. You're not going to rebuild a super stellar offensive line in 1 year. And you're not going to do it in one draft. You can try to do it in one draft, but it's not going to happen. And trust and believe, by the time Sam becomes a free agent, you might not even have the time for him to make it to that point. So, again, I understand, holding off judgment on him, but don't hold off on it for the offensive line to be overhauled, because again, you may run into the situation where you don't have enough time for it to be overhauled to have a true assessment of them. So just be careful about that line of thinking. Jeremy Brinley, 1965. Bro, he's done good with the worst offensive line in football. I think he would light it up if he could stand in the pocket and go through his progressions. That and not have the worst ranked defense in the league. That causes him to try and make something happen by forcing passes, which causes pick sixes. We've got to at least try and see what he can do with a better situation around him. He was flirting with top 10 status before the team imploded the last couple of weeks. Even though some of that, even though a lot of that is true, Sam has also cost the team games himself. So again, even though his situation isn't the best, that doesn't mean that he should be the reason that the team loses. There were times where Sam had made plenty of mistakes, and that could have caused the team to lose as well. A good example of this was that if you pay attention to that Dallas game, he should have probably had 5 or 6 picks. And that was him doing stuff that he should have never done. Trying to force balls in, trying to thread the needle and stuff like that. There were times where Terry was wide open and he just wasn't looking for him. And his progressions are there. But guess what? Sometimes when you have a certain type of wide receiver, sometimes you just go to him. Good example, Taylor would just go to, if Taylor saw that there was a chance that Terry was like, to me, for Taylor, Terry was always his first read. It didn't matter what the hell was going on. He was reading Terry. If he looked over here and, ain't nobody open? I know Terry is over here. I'm throwing it over here. Sometimes you need a guy who focuses on the number one guy and say, I know he's going to make a play, so I'm going to just throw it his way anyway. And it probably work out. But again, like I said, that's one of those situations where, if the situation around him was better, that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to stop throwing the pick sixes. That doesn't necessarily mean he's going to not have these mistakes. Because, again, there have been games where Sam Howell was, in fact, the cause of them losing the game. Next is Michael Hilliard, 5'8", 66. You are absolutely right. The problem is Ron sold him to the fans because of two reasons. One, he knew this was his last shot, and to the fans that mentioned the games he won and the comebacks he accomplished. That is the problem, because we see the potential, but because of his inconsistency, it holds him back from being a good quarterback and a franchise quarterback. He's not. The second reason is Ron was masking the problem they had on defense, and Chase Montez and Jonathan Allen was getting tired of it. That's how they managed to get rid of the DNs. He kept everybody looking at Sam. His stats has to be top in the league. No one throws as much as he does. And the last thing is a question. Why do you think EB always referred to him as the kid? So I agree with you on that. Ron has done this since he's been here. He's been the master illusionist. You know what I'm saying? Don't pay attention to the man behind the curtain. You know what I'm saying? That's what Ron has done. And what he's done is said he's focused on the fact of we're developing a quarterback. And he's letting him throw an insane amount of times. And like you said, most other quarterbacks, they don't throw as much as he do. They don't throw this much. And they would never throw this much. But the fact that Ron has him throwing this much means that Ron has overcompensated how good. He's overcompensated because he doesn't want people to focus on how bad the rest of the team got during his tenure. You're talking about the same thing happened in Carolina. The team got bad very quickly after a while. And that's exactly what happened. Ron let this team get bad. Don't pay attention to the fact that we traded Montez Sweat and Chase Young. Pay attention to the fact that we're developing a young quarterback. Yeah. And the reason Eric Bieniemy calls him kid is because it's just like any coach. When you're older than somebody, 9 times out of 10, you're going to call a guy who's younger than you kid. You know, so that is I wouldn't even call it, it's not a fault. You know, it's just what older coaches do. They'll call someone younger kid. So that's all that is. But hey, I don't think Eric Bieniemy necessarily hates. I don't think Sam Howell hates that he calls him kid, but I don't think he has a problem with it either. Next is Michael Franklin, 7928. Sam Howell will make you eat your words in a few years. Fan since 1974. Sam is playing behind an average O-line with a 32nd ranked defense and no running game to help him. Sam Howell currently has more passing yards in the league. Your argument is nonsense. He has time to improve his game. Washington needs O-line players and tight end help. Have patience. I'm going to say this. I don't disagree with you about having patience. Not at all. What I will say is this. The fact that you've been a fan since 1974, you've seen Sonny Jurgensen. You've seen Billy Kilmer. You saw Joe Theismann. You saw Robert Griffin III. In comparison to those guys, right? Those guys were on teams where the run game was the dominant force. In 87, that was the first time we saw a run-heavy Washington team actually rely on the passing game more than we've ever seen that team before. Even in 91 they didn't, I think 91 they were throwing a lot too, but they didn't focus on the passing game like they did in 87. So the fact that you have seen that level of quarterback play and understand this is again illusionist Ron. He wants y'all to focus on the fact that this quarterback is throwing for all these yards, all these attempts. But he wants to minimize the fact that he leads the league in sacks. He's top 3, I think it's top 3 in interceptions. That is not good. It's not. I'm not saying don't have patience. Yes, we can have patience, but guess what? Again, when will you get the opportunity to draft one of these great quarterbacks coming out of this draft this year? Like this is one of the few drafts that you say, yo, there's some good ones coming out of here. We got to see if we can get one of these good ones, especially if we got a top pick. Understand this. The year that Green Bay drafted Jordan Love, they didn't need a quarterback. The year that New England drafted Tom Brady, they didn't need a quarterback. They had Drew Bledsoe, who they just paid $100 million to. So sometimes there are times where you have to draft a guy because he's there. Now, don't get me wrong. Tom Brady was in the 6th round, but the problem is that he should have never fell to the 6th round because even in Michigan, he was the comeback king. So, again, that's one of those things where I understand where you're coming from. I understand the patience thing. I get it. But you can't give him just and just like I told on the previous comment, just because he needs time, don't focus on the factor of O-line or tight end is going to help him get better. Understand, it may take time for us to get there. And if your patience is reliant upon that, you may be in a worse situation because, again, Sam Howell will be in year 3 next year. The year following that, he's a free agent because guess what? He doesn't have that 5th-year option. Again, why? That's another reason you got to take a quarterback this year because he will have a 5th-year option. So, again, I understand I understand what you're saying, but like I said, again, I do have patience, but I still draft a quarterback this year. Next is Ruff Jr. 1748. Another issue is out of the NFC East over almost 40 years, we have not had a franchise quarterback. All of our division mates have had at least one, if not two, since Theismann retired. That's a major issue. And you know what? You're spot on about that. Like, you're talking about, when you think about just the Giants alone, you're talking about Phil Simms. They had Phil Simms, Eli Manning. They had somebody else in between there. But, I mean, you're talking about that. No, in fact, I think it's only been Phil Simms and Eli Manning from that standpoint. But, again, you're talking about, and now Daniel Jones, who's not that great. But, again, you're talking about, we've seen that. Dallas has had Staubach, Troy Aikman. I guess you could throw Romo in there, Dak. You know, like we've seen them deal with that. Philadelphia, they've had Donovan McNabb, Sonny Jurgensen, Ron Jaworski, like I said, Donovan McNabb, Randall Cunningham. I guess you could throw Carson Wentz in there. So yeah, you're talking about we've seen other teams in our division really have franchise guys and multiple franchise guys. Philly being probably the one that has just had the most. But again, yeah, what do you do when you have a team that hasn't had a franchise guy since 1985? I think it was 86, since 86. So yeah, that's not a good thing. And yeah, it would be nice. Again, all of us felt Robert Griffin was going to be our franchise guy. The problem was that we didn't know his ego was so big to ruin his own progression as a quarterback. So that was that. But yeah, I 100% agree with you, man. Next is Dante KS4 LS. If the new head coach, general manager thinks Sam is the guy, then let's roll. If not, I'm hoping we go after Caleb, May, or Penix because them boys are the special talent at quarterback that would transform this franchise. You are not lying. I mean, I'm going to tell y'all something, man. Penix Jr., I mean, I can't talk about the dude enough. Now, this last game, Washington versus Washington State, his coach's ego got in the way. Because that was a game that you should have made sure that Penix had the ball in the waning minutes, and that you didn't sit up there and get in the way of that. Penix was playing very well. He did throw a pick, but he was playing very well. And coming down towards the end of that game, every time, 3rd and 1, 3rd and 1, 3rd and 1, for some reason the coach wanted to run the ball. Sometimes a coach can get in the way of a quarterback. A la Ron Rivera. But Penix Jr., I mean, this dude throws dimes. I mean, and not only that, he makes plays outside of the pocket, inside the pocket. He doesn't scramble as much, but when he does scramble, he gets out. So, I mean, he's special. But not only that, fucking Jaden Daniels out of LSU, if y'all saw his last game, trust and believe, yeah, I'm telling y'all that he's a special one too. So, yeah, these guys coming out, they're special. And the last comment is by my man B Well 4467. Okay, I'm gonna stop here, and he put the time 6:48 and say this. I was in my early 20s and I remember Jay Schrader well. All the stats you mentioned are right on target, and he had a golden arm, but any comparison of the quarterback position has to include leadership. The players hated Jay. He was arrogant and hard to coach, which was why Joe Gibbs finally went to Doug. I don't see that in Sam. Need to say I haven't made up my mind on Sam. Going to continue with the vid now. Okay, I understand your points. Can't agree with the Jay comp because quarterback is more than just stats, and I believe Sam could develop into something special because of his work ethic and leadership and coachability. If you don't think he's it, I get it, but to me, too early to tell. Terry Bradshaw got his team 4 rings and was horrible his first season. Peyton, Trevor, see a lot of great quarterbacks struggle their first year. Yeah. The Jay Schrader comp had more to do with more talent, and I understand what you mean by that. It takes more leadership than anything else, and Jay Schrader was a horrible leader. Horrible. But I'm talking about them looking identically the same. Like body shape, throwing motion, again, massive amount of attempts on a team that was a running team. You're talking about throwing for all them yards, but he also had the interceptions. He also had the sacks. You know, like everything was identical to Sam other than the leadership part. Yes, he's not a head case and his teammates don't hate him. But again, everything else just reminds me of him. Like he makes the exact same mistakes. He does the exact same thing. He causes the exact same problems. And to be quite honest, it's not that, and I keep saying this, I don't hate Sam. I don't hate him. I just hate the fact that everybody's calling him the franchise guy. And for me, I don't see him as that right now. And not to be quite honest, again, when you have a draft where these guys coming out are fantastic, it's hard to not sit up there and pass on a guy who can be something very special. But y'all, I appreciate all y'all comments. I'm on the road to 500 for all y'all that's not subscribed. Please subscribe, like, comment, all that type of stuff. I appreciate all of y'all. I love y'all. Y'all have been the best people. Like I said, on the road to 500, and I just appreciate it all. Other than that, this has been your man, John Fortune. I will come back with a video probably in a couple days because Jack is gone. The defensive back coach is gone. Again, they should have been fired at the beginning of the season. That was my take. But again, y'all tell me, again, I appreciate you all. Other than that, this has been your man, John Fortune, and this has been the Frustrated Fan Sports Show.